And I think instead of simultaneous translation, we're going to have summary at blocks as we go along or at the end. So disasters exact an enormous effort of response on the part of different actors, government, aid organizations, research workers, and most significantly, in the long run, the communities that are torn apart physically and psychologically by the events. And in this presentation, we report on some of our work as researchers in this area of human experience in Taiwan, Japan, and other parts of the world. And we foreground the following topics: disasters and relocation, disasters and recovery, the place of rituals and memorialization, and the multiple roles that can be played by aid organizations such as NGOs. And a large part of our paper will not be presented because of time constraints, so we've cut it down to some of the basics.
We'd like here, before I begin, we go on further, to extend our very warm thanks to everyone at Tzu Chi for their kind help and interest in our research over the last several years on this topic. This assistance has fed into our publications. One of these is our book on the topic of ritual, which was published earlier this year with Bloomsbury Academic in London. It contains materials also on our disaster anthropology research. Other publications on this topic are in press with sections on this same topic. We gave a lecture here at Tzu Chi University last year on the anthropology of charity, and the general model of coping and hoping, as we call it, that we have invented and developed in our studies can usefully be considered when one is looking at the impacts of charitable actions on communities. So the basis of coping and hoping and how charitable organizations can contribute to that is one of our interests. Now, for a long time, anthropologists... Oh, you want to...
Thank you. Yeah. 因为时间关系哈，他们的部分的全文啊，但是没有办法完全读，不可能完全读完。而且时间也不允许说这样这个完整的翻译哈，所以我们的刚刚的讨论就是说我做他们讲完一个区块之后呢，我很扼要的来说明一下。那刚刚几分钟的说明，基本上两位教授从匹兹堡大学来的两位教授，他们是社会人类学家，那他们主题是要关心讨论这个在灾难之后。那么在政策跟实践上面，要注意到几个不同的所谓的 multiple dimension， 就是不同的层面的这个现象或者因素啊，要去注意到。主要的目的是要让未来在救灾的时候呢，能够效率更好，那对灾民的福祉呢能够更兼顾得到。那他们过去的长期的兴趣呢，有在仪式上，他们有出蛮多的书哈。那关于仪式的研究等等，都是他们过去的兴趣。那最近几年，他们兴趣于所谓的灾难复原的研究。那他们的计划是跨国的计划，最近3年来，一直到明后年啊，前后5年左右，美国的研究的基金啊，提供他们全世界性的几个不同国家的跨国的研究。那前一阵子他们才从日本去了4个月回来，所以他们等一下也会谈到一点关于日本的研究的部分。Thank you.
Thank you, Otsu. I'm sure, as always, you put it better than we could ourselves. For a long time, anthropologists have been aware of the need to handle questions of change and history in their ethnographic studies and theoretical explorations. The increasing volatility and pace of social processes, often associated with migration and phenomena loosely labeled as globalization, coupled with the rise of international NGOs and the employment of anthropologists and others as consultants, has accelerated the urgency of dealing with types of complex and disordered change in society. Studies of areas affected by large-scale or pervasive disasters present to us key challenges in this context. Further, concern with global climatic change has highlighted the relevance of such studies.
So disaster and recovery narratives given by people encapsulate the two main themes of our project on the phases of coping and hoping in people's experiences in disaster situations. And coping comes first and also has to continue over time, but is supplemented by hope that circumstances can improve or are improving. Creative actions by people foster and help senses of hope to grow within a community. Actions that we call symbolic come into play and may operate in any sphere, intimate, public, or political, and at any stage of recovery from trauma. In Japan, the disaster known as the Great East Japan Earthquake and Tsunami happened up and down the eastern coast of Sendai with the incursion of an enormous tsunami wave on March 11th, 2011. And we'll be talking about this because we were asked to actually focus a little bit about our work in Japan in our presentation.
刚刚的这一小段主要是在讲到说，那个在有很多因素会导致人群的移动，所谓的 migration 啊，那包括这个自愿性的移动，有些是会自愿性的移动，包括天然灾害等等，迁村啊等等，不管任何种类的移动，都会涉及不只是身体上的移动，都会涉及到这个很复杂的一些适应的过程。那这些适应过程当中，包括每一个个人，灾民也好，或者是迁移者也好，他本身的一些身心的状况，他本身的条件。另外呢，就是环境新的环境的一些适应，包括政策或者是他们的那个当地的环境的一种适应的状况。那这当中比较复杂的，从人类学的角度来看，会比较注意到所谓的象征的部分的象征的一种表现的方式。
Just a few details about that event. A special edition of Nikkei Eastern Review for March the 6th, 2014 was produced to commemorate this cataclysmic event and noted that some 20,000 people had died or gone missing, some 400,000 homes were destroyed, as well as huge damage done to roads and services. Some 470,000 people had to leave their homes, in particular because of leakage from the crippled Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant. The latter presents an especially poignant problem because of long-term pollution that makes it problematic whether some residents will ever be able to return to their homes. In the cherry blossom season of 2014, we watched the NHK TV programs depicting trees blooming in well-known areas where the residents were not permitted to return and view them. Given the great significance of the cherry blossom in Japanese culture, this was regarded as a mark of the serious deprivation suffered by people.
And then we have a second example. And the reason we're giving these examples also is to show as anthropologists that cultural knowledge about people's ways of being in the world and what they see as important might not be something that would necessarily be aware to a worker in the area unless they had some information, such as cherry blossom season being so incredibly important to people in Japan. And the second example is in April of this year, we watched another television program while we were working in Japan that carried the story of a mother who had borne her daughter in a hospital shaken by the earthquake on the day of the tsunami. It was her first child and she was terrified, and a nurse told her just to keep the newborn close to her skin and so help it to be warm. She had hidden in a car outside of the damaged hospital building, and so mother and child both survived. Later, she felt, as many survivors often do, guilty for being alive and uncertain whether she should celebrate this little daughter's birth date. A furniture company, however, was giving out small wooden chairs for children born on the date of the tsunami, and the daughter had grown very fond of one of these little chairs that had been given to her. The chairs were called hope chairs, and the mother felt that she could now celebrate the daughter's birth because it represented the idea of hope for the future, that the daughter would grow up and she would help to create new life.
Okay, all me please. 刚也这一小段主要是那个讲到说他们 在日本的时候也听到 看到 NHK 的新闻，知道这个就是311这个综合性灾难的时候，这个有几十万人流离失所然后甚至那个经济啦等等都受到摧毁。那这个另外 Stewart 教授呢就提到另外一个例子第二个例子就是在医院里，今年发生在他们，因为今年从4月到6月到7月都在日本嘛。那在4月的时候，在日本的一个医院里面，就看到有一个妈妈带着她的一个小孩，是当时候是好像在海啸发生的时候所生下来的，然后现在已经过了这个差不多1-2年1年多。那在那个医院里面，然后就那个护士呢帮他们保持他们身体的温暖，但是让妈妈觉得难过的是说，好像包括有一些其他的灾民会觉得说这么多死亡这么多人，可是我们存活下来的人好像就觉得是一种愧疚感这样就是说没有办法去挽救到他们自己的家人这样存活下来一种日本人比较容易产生的一种所谓的作为一个人的名分这是我补充的部分作为一个人的名分，然后这个在义理上没有办法去拯救自己的家人，会产生一种愧疚感这是日本人很重要的一种文化的传统文化的理念Thank you.
These disaster and recovery narratives encapsulate the two main themes of our own long-term project on the phases of coping and hoping in people's experiences in disaster situations. As we have noted, coping comes first and also has to continue over time, but is supplemented by hope that circumstances can improve or are improving. Creative actions by people foster and help senses of hope to grow over time. Actions that we call symbolic come into play and may operate in any sphere, intimate, public or political, and at any stage of recovery from trauma.
And one thing that we have written a lot about and is very important are ritual practices and memorializations in terms of recovery from disasters. So rituals play a very important part in the process of adaptation to the traumas of natural disasters. Major elements of trauma that call for response are loss of life and the grief that this causes, disruption of networks within a community in which life has been disturbed, and a sense of crisis in the cosmos, the whole general cosmos, or the order of the world, and the suffering or displacement from the familiar and well-loved places identified as what we would call home. Rituals provide frameworks in which to express and externalize feelings in a legitimate way and to restore social values.
这个电池消耗很快，所以会有一些状况不过慈济在这个经常是有变化球了那我刚刚因为这个变化球，我在这里面看我很忙，是因为我手头上因为今天的安排并不是我来做这样的一个工作它是临时，然后我有他们的文章，但是并没有印出来，在手册上也没有，所以只好借着电脑刚刚那个电脑又没电了，对，实际很多事情都是变化球，我们出队也都是这样，包括安排也都是这样好，那刚刚这个一小段里面主要就是在这个整个人在适应环境的过程里面，经常要透过仪式化的一个方式。就是透过某种仪式，来，比如说祈福仪式等等，或者我们所谓的法会等等，各种不同的方式，来，一者是要回忆或者记忆我们过去的那一段发生的事情，或者是来舒缓 这个心理的压力等等，所以仪式是变得很重要的一种那个解决焦虑或者让人带着人往前继续走、往前看的这样的一个功能在里面。这是人类学家在研究仪式行为的时候，发现它有很重要的社会心理功能在里面。那对于灾难者来讲呢，为什么要有非常多的仪式？主要的原因呢，这就因为它本身就是具有很重要的功能在里面。
Within the general area of this 2011 tsunami disaster, the Tohoku University in Sendai has strengthened the operations of a disaster control research center, where we visited and met with many colleagues involved in disaster recovery studies. From 2010 on, the center has had two sections, a research and development section in which data are collected, and a research and promotion section dealing with disaster prevention and mitigation. A large United Nations sponsored international conference on these topics is planned for March 2015. Major foci of this conference will be tsunamis, earthquakes, and floods as sites of disasters, but memorialization and ritual practices in relation to the memory of disasters form one topical focus of research that they have identified.
So in May of this year, we went to a particular site of commemoration of the disaster where the tsunami had washed away most of the houses. And one site of ritualization was a high school where 14 children had died when the tsunami surged through their school building and inundated the building before all of the occupants could escape. A ritual site had grown up just at the entranceway to the school, consisting of a number of components put together over the intervening period of time since the tsunami. Temporary gestures of memorialization had been replaced by more long-lasting ones that included a list of all the students who had died and a hard black colored stone which visitors were encouraged to touch and pass their hands over, putting them literally in touch with the source of grief and loss by touching the stones with all of the names of those who had died. Nearby, a further stage of memorialization had been built in the shape of a center that contained ongoing works of documenting the event that had occurred and work done with and by children who had survived as a form of therapy. All of these elements were tinged with a very personal and intimate sense of the personhood of the individuals who had lost their lives in the tsunami. And we have a slide of the stone to show.
刚刚这一小段主要是在讲那个也是他们今年在日本所看到的，有一个学校里面当中有12个小朋友就在灾难中丧生了，后来他们就举行了一个仪式来纪念这样的一个过程啊。I try to make it quick.
Thank you.
Okay, further away, we were able to see another level of ritualized memorialization on a high mound where there was an older Shinto shrine memorial for soldiers who had died in war and had thus died before their time like disaster victims. This mound stood out from its surrounds, flat, empty land, where once there had been business premises and dwellings crowded. Two different Buddhist memorial sites for disaster victims have been set up, both showing the marks of ritual invention. Sacred trees were planted on the mound also. At its back were old stone markers that had been placed at former sites with warnings about the dangers of tsunamis. At the front of the mound there was a floral marker in different colors, spelling out the name of the site, and in the parking area there was a souvenir shop. The mound itself had received this increment of ritual and social meanings through people's actions, but its own natural eminence made it a marker of survival, a natural monument that had outlasted the buildings all around it, which the tsunami had swept completely away.
So we'll just go through a number of slides and then jump forward to some information about NGOs and NPOs in Japan. So we'll just go through those slides very quickly.
刚刚就是说，刚刚这边一些 照片就是他们拍的。那日本人就是说是如何去纪念往生者，那用非常这个漂亮的花去表示他们的对亡者的一些怀念主要然后这边也秀出来那个整个这是仙台啦我刚听起来好像是仙台整个这个建筑物几乎都被那个外爆，就是被摧毁这样好 ，OK。
So we'll just go through these slides very quickly. Are just some of the little shrines that have been set up in the area. Those, I don't know why it isn't stopping on those. But, anyway, those two stones were knocked over, and they were stones indicating the area of a warning about tsunami.
就是说，对灾民的一个心理适应来讲呢，会发生一些作用那这个我们然后之后他们会另外会再回去日本，再去访问我们日本慈济分会的师兄师姐那在这个311海啸当中，慈济如何去协助这个灾区然后他们也会做一些跟其他的 NGO 做一些比较这是他们目前主要是从那个人类学的一些角度，希望从不同的面向去看到灾民如何去适应这样的一个大灾难。那从政府的政策或者不同 NGO 组织之间的协助那对灾民产生什么样的效应？这是他们研究的目标那大概主要是这样OK，
Thank
you very much.